Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rankus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you, everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
We'll bring you the expert interviews, insightful discussions, and practical tips to make motherhood a little easier and help your family thrive.
Please keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice, diagnosis, or treatment plans you have with your personal healthcare team. Please have a conversation with your trusted healthcare provider prior to making any changes or implementing any strategies or advice you learn from this podcast.
Whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Here at the Motherhood Alliance podcast, we challenge the status quo, ask the tough questions, and offer a supportive community for moms who want to make an informed, holistic choice.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to introduce you to Martha Bailey, a board-certified nurse coach and the owner of Wellness on the Wolf based out of Fremont, Wisconsin. As a nurse coach, Martha specifically loves to help adults better manage stress and anxiety, find work-life balance, improve sleep, support sustainable weight loss, and navigate life changes. With a background that spans hospital work, travel nursing, and many years in oncology, Martha brings a deep experience perspective to coaching, which we can actually personally speak to because both Drea and I have experienced her coaching ourselves. And we can tell you that she is not only incredible to work with, but she's truly an amazing human being. Outside of her work, she loves being outdoors, playing recreational volleyball, paddleboarding, cheering on sports teams, and spending quality time with her husband and their 3 daughters. We're excited to introduce you to her now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are back here with Martha. Welcome back, Martha.
Hi.
We had an amazing conversation in the first episode just talking about setting goals, and just talking about how Martha's approach is so effective in asking questions and just helping people, even if they feel like they don't have specific things that they want to work on. It's just asking questions and really pulling out the deep whys. But with this episode, we're going to be talking about how to manage stress during major life changes or, transitions. And we've all gone through that or will go through that, whether that's having a new baby or career changes, grief, moving, that sort of thing. And so, I kind of mentioned some things, Martha, but what other major life transitions have you helped people go through?
Yeah. Well, and the major life transitions, moving sometimes, financial changes, and like you said, new baby, career change, maybe retirement. Now they have this time and that's a big change for them, not sure what to do with it. Death of a loved one, really anything can feel like a major life change without physically moving locations or having a new baby. There's still a lot of things that can happen, unexpected or expected, that cause stress.
Where does someone start, since they have to walk through that difficult or challenging experience? How do they work through that while still having to maintain everything else in life? Because just because someone dies or something happens in their family, they can't just stop life from happening. Bills are still going to come in. Kids are growing up. They need things. How do you help with that?
Yeah. Well, we've heard the phrase of 1 day at a time, right? Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time, 1 breath at a time. So really coming back to how do you manage stress with the small things and small triggers? That's a good starting point sometimes because the big things seem so heavy and overwhelming. So how do you normally manage stress if something happens? If you spill, a cup of milk, if you lose your keys, if you're stuck in traffic and you're running late, how does your body respond? How do you typically handle those situations? And starting to get to know how each person manages the small triggers is helpful to figure out what to try and for managing the big life changes.
So I almost feel like, kind of figuring out how you handle that stuff before these big life changes happen is super helpful.
Yeah. And as we play with different tools in coaching, I call them tools because, breath work, taking a breath. Well, there's different techniques for that too. There's certain breath techniques for managing stress. There's certain things that actually trigger it and cause more stress. If you're counting, sometimes that can be not settling to the nervous system.
Sure, yeah.
And then, lots of other tools writing things down, meditating, talking with a friend, going on a walk, moving your body physically, just even if it's just doing 5 jumping jacks, getting out of your head, kind of disrupting that thought pattern and that stressful moment of just pausing. The power of the pause. That's another great tool that doesn't take any time or money. It's just that little bit of a pause. And sometimes that breath comes with that.
Yeah. And you just mentioned a whole bunch of tools that doesn't go for everybody. It's so individualized, right? And so it's one thing that might be more overwhelming, for somebody else. It works for another person.
And situation.
Right.
What might work really well for somebody in one situation, you put them in a different situation and they need to reach for a different tool. So having like lots of different tools in your toolbox to reach for, and that's kind of where coaching comes in, is really getting in the habit of reaching for those tools, taking that pause, figuring out what you want to try in that moment. And those small triggers happen every day. There's stress in our lives all the time, but it may not be huge and overwhelming. So playing with that and really trying to get in the habit of reaching for different tools to see what helps settle you, what feels good, what is helpful, and going from there.
So, we talk about like the different kinds of, the stresses, the transitions. If you have like different tools, like you said, or different ideas or tips or nuggets that you might have for each of these different things, so if a mom is a brand new mom and she's going to bring home a brand new baby, maybe there's some things that you can talk about with that, or, career changes or financials.
Yeah. And sometimes with like a brand new baby too, like there's so much coming at you. And you also, if you're a new mom, you've never had a baby before. So you may think you're prepared.
Enough.
You have all the things and the classes and what's going to, happen with labor to an extent, but really you don't know how you're going to feel, how that stress is going to be, how the emotions are going to be, how physically you're going to be. So there's a lot of unknowns in that. But I think like in that situation, tapping into what can you trust? What's a situation in your life where it's been stressful? How did you manage that? What did you reach for? What did you tell yourself? Some of it's like mantras, telling yourself something. And sometimes that sounds silly. And I encourage people to try different things that feel uncomfortable, because within there, they'll probably find something that actually does make a difference. And so it may feel uncomfortable at first, but that's all the more reason to give it a try.
Right. And I feel like, and we talked about this in the last episode too, it's like you're discovering more about yourself when you get a little bit more uncomfortable, or when you have to ask these deep questions, right? Because I feel like, at least for me, sometimes I don't want to ask those deep questions because I just don't want to dig. Yeah. But when I do, I discover a lot of really interesting things, and it's worth doing.
And with the example of being a new mom, like how great is that to kind of carry those tools and like asking those questions to your child as they grow. I find myself asking my kids, a lot of different questions, and sometimes they may get sick of me asking them questions, but it's sort of like putting it in their hands as they get older, obviously. And what do you think would be a good idea to try? What would you want to say to a friend? Again, kind of putting it in their shoes of like, if you had a friend going through this, what would you say? And then also another tool that for the new mom situation, I think, is the permission to ask for help, even if you don't know what you need help with. Just the permission that asking for help, people want to help. We're helpers. It's okay to ask for help, even if you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Different types of transitions, some of them you can expect. Like if you're going to be retiring, you're going to be having a baby, like you have time to prepare for that. You have some things you can maybe try to gather. It's more kind of, I think, the unexpected, or where you've maybe had the high stress in your life, kind of your adrenals are probably worn down. You live in this kind of high stress from one thing to the next, and trying to reset that and pause and kind of taper back and figure out, is this how I really want to live? Because at some point I'm probably going to get burned out. I'm probably going to, have a breakdown, or do something, yell at my kids, or say things I don't want to say. So kind of trying to figure out that, I think, is almost harder than those things we know we can anticipate, is the when we're so involved and so stressed out that is bringing awareness to it and sort of pausing it.
And on that piece that you're just mentioning, again, reiterating that a lot of these changes can be planned, like if you're planning to move, or if you know you're going to have a baby, you have like time to process this and prep and things like that. But then these ones that just hit you and you were not expecting them, they can be so deep. When would you recommend that people are going to see a like mental health counselor versus coaching, or would it be a combination of both?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because again, yeah, preparing, you can make lists, you can find resources. But when this kind of hits you, and I've had people that I've worked with that they might have come to me for a certain reason with stress management or life work balance. And then into our coaching and working together, there are some underlying things. And coaching is more of a, what do you want to do about things now and where do you want to go going forward? Whereas maybe like therapy might be also appropriate to some of these habits, some of these triggers, some of these reactions are from different trauma or just experiences in life that if they haven't seen a therapist, that might be a beneficial person to also involve. So I have had people that have done both at the same time, but it really is up to the person, but I'll help to ask them and pull out like, maybe this isn't, you're not ready for this yet, but maybe there's other things that you need some healing from. And I truly believe our bodies and our minds, we can heal a lot within, but there are support and resources that before we move on to what do you want to achieve in the next, 3 months to a year, this also you might achieve it, but are you going to be able to maintain it if you're not addressing what else is there or what else might have happened before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about even, the death of a loved one, especially if it's unexpected, even if there is no past trauma, that is now a traumatic event in their life that could affect them going forward if they don't walk through it and take the time to grieve and like heal, right? Another thing that comes to mind when people are going through hard times is support groups. And I know like churches oftentimes have a lot of these. Do you help people find support groups in any way that could help? So that, because there's always something about somebody else who has actually gone through it that makes you feel like you really connect with them.
That's a great question. Absolutely. So I have worked with people locally. I've worked with people across the country, and I can still help try to find resources in their area, whether it's in person or things that are online, depending on what it is. So if it's grief, okay, I can dig through and take the time for finding resources for that. Sometimes it's different tools like, okay, I want to try and do some breath work, but I don't really know how, or guided meditations. I don't meditate. I can send them links on things. How do I get more movement into my day? There can be certain like, okay, let's start with 2 minutes or 5 minute, maybe video that you can pull up and just do that. And that's it. Like that's something more, making progress, right? So in between our coaching sessions is where I can help with, support, accountability, checking in, resources, gathering resources. But I also ask the person for permission and figure out what is going to be helpful versus overwhelming, because depending on what they're working on and how they're feeling, they might need time to let that session kind of marinate. And a lot of the times the magic happens between sessions where it's like something clicks or they feel that accomplishment or they feel that struggle, but they pulled through. So it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things, but absolutely I can find resources. And I think that's where being a nurse and we have to know where our resources are has been really helpful with coaching is we have that, whether it's a physical thing, there's people I can refer to like dig into more of the medical. Maybe this is, somebody you'd want to talk to and dig into that. Is this really the problem? So the resources are a huge part of it, but at the same time, it's individualized. So how much is too much, but yet offering it and having it available?
I feel like that is huge because when big event things happen, especially the unexpected, your mind just goes numb. Like you don't have capacity to do research. You don't want to have to find these support groups. You just, to have somebody like you in their corner to be able to just do the research for you and present you with options. Yeah. Sounds so
and somebody
helpful.
Who knows you, like if you've been talking, then they then what they need.
And sometimes it's I've been called the human connector before because like connecting humans or connecting, different services. So I can ask permission. Is it okay if I connect you with this person? And then I can take it one step further to just not make an appointment necessarily, not with, but just to connect the people in an email or this is the name, this is their, and then maybe the person's like, well, you can give me their information, but I don't really want to, it's still kind of nerve wracking. Like change is scary.
Yeah.
This also makes me think about kind of looking at how you help in a completely different perspective is if my friend or even my sister was going through something really hard and I haven't been through it. So I don't know how to support her. Me not as the person going through it, but me as the friend or the sister coming to you and being like, help me understand what questions I should be asking. Like you guiding a support person on how to also support the person going through the changes. I feel like that would be really helpful because there's always people that are going through struggles, and unless you've gone through it yourself, you don't know what they really need from you.
That's so true. You feel helpless. So yeah, absolutely.
And being a caregiver, that's a good example too, is sometimes caregivers of somebody, either their elderly parent or, they come and they're just not sure what to do. And it starts with my mom or my dad or, this person, or maybe it's my kids. But really are you taking care of you? And then let's go back to like, what can you control? You can't control their actions, but what can you control with you? And what do you want to work on so that you're supported in a good state to be there for them, whether it be listening, physically, all the things.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier when you were talking about the new baby thing about why like so many women they refuse help or they are not willing to at least ask for it. And I would really apply that to all of these big life transitions, because if we were moving, there's a little bit of guilt feeling that I'm inconveniencing people if I come over, or if I ask them to come over and help me move boxes or help me pack or paint the walls. You don't like inconveniencing people. Why do you feel like asking for help these days is so hard?
I think sometimes it's that word, like earlier we talked about guilt. Can we replace help with something like, is there an opportunity for someone to be there for you in a different way? Is there an opportunity for a community to come together with this? Is there, sometimes just changing that word from help is there an opportunity to share, to do something outside the box, or just listen? A lot of times it's just listening, checking in. You can send a message, text message, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope your day's going well. You don't have to have something back or expect a response. You can even write that. No response needed. Just you popped in my mind and wishing you well. Like sending those little things and just putting it out there, I think is really a cool way to lead towards change, and just realizing that it doesn't take a whole lot sometimes to take steps towards change.
I would also say too, like if you're going, if you're going to move, for example, right? If you feel like you're going to inconvenience someone, I feel like thinking about how much you're stressed, or why you're thinking about asking other people, and then going back to that question you've brought up before is like, what would if my friend was feeling this way, what would I do to help them? I would go help them, right? And so if you have friends, they're probably going to be more than willing to do something for you.
Yeah, and if someone's struggling with, how do I ask, or what do I need help with? Well, I often pose the question in coaching sessions, well, what's the best case scenario? You ask for help and they say, sure.
Yeah, sure.
And you have help. What's the worst case scenario? They say, no, I can't, or I'm busy. Okay, well then what's the next thing you can do? There's usually always a next.
Right.
And then that best case, worst case scenario isn't always as horrible as we think it may be.
That's I just think of my kids too, asking that same question about whatever it is that they're thinking about or stressing about, that's such a good question.
And to finish out this episode, I think I'd love to hear just some like tangible tips that people can do when they're going through a life change. And it's so hard because we're really bulking so many of these big life changes together when they're so unrelated. But one that comes to mind is like lowering your expectations of daily tasks.
Oh, sure.
When you're going through that, and just allowing yourself to have space with where your mental thoughts are going, right? But when it comes to actually accomplishing and still like running our households and taking care of our kids and all these other things, asking for help, lowering expectations of tasks and maybe how the house looks, is there anything else that comes to mind as to like helps to take some things off of our plate since something huge is on it?
Yeah, so I think you had a great point of that, like sometimes taking things off or managing the to-do list of sometimes limiting it to 3 things for a day. What 3 things? If you could only achieve 3 things today, what would that be? And then asking yourself too, like, oh, did I show love to my kids? Was I there for them? Some basic things, and some of the other things that we think we need to do or get done or have on our list, they may be important and some things have to get done, but sometimes it's not a today problem that we can also, it'll be there. Yep. It'll be there. The world's not going to fall apart. But what can I do today? What can I, again, go back to the word accomplish, or try. What can I try today? And just appreciate that and take a moment to celebrate that one too, or that thought, and pausing.
And being okay. Like, I did finish those 3 things and that's it. And that's okay. I don't have to do more.
Yeah.
Let's circle back to the topic of kids, though, because a lot of these big changes are hugely affecting them as well. And I think as parents, we are always just like, am I traumatizing my kid? Is this a traumatic moment that how do I support a child through so many of these transitions? So probably more so focusing on the sudden transitions. Do you have any tips for how we can be there for our kids, or questions that we could be asking them to really check in and see how they're doing?
Yeah. Again, it kind of depends on what that situation is. But I think with whenever we look at ourselves and at what we want to change or work on, bringing attention to your child of, mom's working on trying to take a breath more often. Or if I'm on my phone, I really want to get this email out to your school before the teacher leaves. Talking through what you're doing. Your actions, your tools, talking through and telling them what you might be doing, and showing by example. I'm just going to take a breath. Do you want to take a breath with me? Or, involving them in some of these tools at an early age is so helpful for them for that moment and however they're feeling it, because they might experience it different than we are and have different emotions. But just sharing with them what you're working on. And that also is another way to hold yourself accountable too.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this was an awesome episode. I would just love for you to reiterate how people can contact you if they'd like to learn more about your coaching.
Yeah, so my website is wellnessonthewolf.com, and that is because I live on the Wolf River in Fremont, so that is the why. And they can go on there, learn a little more about me. They can actually book a free discovery session that's 60 minutes just to have an experience of talking through whatever it is. If they're stuck, if they don't know, if they just kind of want to find out more about coaching, we can have a conversation. So they can do that through a video chat, a phone call, and then if they're local, in person too.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martha. We do have 2 more episodes coming up. I am going to let you know what episode number 4 is going to be about, at least a little bit of a teaser here. But next up, we're going to be honing in on one of Martha's areas of expertise within coaching. So the first 2 episodes in this series has really been kind of about more general topics that a lot of people are commonly going through. But this next one is coming from Martha's own experience. This was born. And so she has put a program together called The Path Ahead. And it's really about helping to organize your essential life information to help make it easier for your whole family, when they need to either access it, or if you're thinking about aging parents, being able to access their information easily. Organizing all of this ahead of time and being proactive is going to help minimize so much of the stress, like when these big life transitions happen. And then our 4th episode, I know you guys have been waiting for it. It's going to be an episode on sourdough, fermentation, some of the things that we've been playing with in our own homes. Martha's been doing sourdough for quite a while, so we actually were not even planning to do this episode. She came in and Drea's like, I think I have an idea for a 4th one, because this is all stuff we geek out about.
We're going to geek out. It's going to be great. We have lots of resources too, because sometimes it's hard to, describe things too.
And the health benefits right up Nursing Alley.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So changing things up a little bit in these last 2 episodes, but they're going to be amazing as well. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review, or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.